Hey guys, it's Patrick Hall with Fstoppers.com, and today we're in the studio. We got the lovely Anna Logan hooks, and today we're gonna be doing 5 different lighting setups with 5 different light modifiers using just a tiny little strobe. We're gonna start off here in the studio, but don't worry, we're gonna go out on location as well, and hopefully you guys can apply these same shooting techniques to your own photography. So this video is sponsored by Profoto, and throughout the entire photo shoot, I'm gonna be using their brand new A2 studio strobe. This thing is designed to go out on location. Look at this, it's the size of a Coke can, and it's using the brand new Clic system. So it's got magnets built in, and you can just add any kind of light modifier you want right there on the front. Now, if you don't have Profoto gear, I'm gonna put a link to everything that I'm using in the description below. Don't worry though, if you have a studio strobe that you can take out on location and you have the same light modifiers, you're gonna be able to do all these same techniques with the gear that you own. Although it is pretty nice to have a studio strobe this lightweight with light modifiers that snap on just with magnets. That's pretty awesome. All right, for this first shot, I wanna go really complex at the beginning, so I hold your attention before we go outside. So the first thing that I did was I placed Anna Logan here in this little corner where we have some natural window light. And because they're coming on both sides of her, it's just the way this room is designed, I'm gonna be able to get these really nice highlights on both sides of her face. I'll take one natural light shot so you can see what it looks like without any strobe. And you can see we have these nice highlights on her cheek, but I don't want it to look normal. I want this to look really moody and crazy. So one little trick you can do is I can go down here to my white balance. And if I change my white balance from 5,000, which is daylight, and go all the way down to 2,500, and now take the exact same shot. Now we have these crazy blue highlights, and already this image looks like it was shot, you know, at night or under the moon. So now that we have our ambient light set up, I need to add some strobe. And because the natural light is being amplified by my high ISO, I'm going to need to set my strobe extremely low. In this case, I have this set to 0.1, which is just gonna add a little bit of flash. And then because our overall image is really blue, I'm gonna play around with some of these Clic gels. This one is the rose pink. And what's really nice is I can even add, say, a CTO on top of that to warm it up even more. And then to contain the light only to her face so that I don't light up the background, I'm gonna use one of these little grids. This is a Clic 20-degree grid. Snap that right on top. I have 3 different things attached to my flash. And now if I take a picture, you can see we have warm light. It's like a pink rosy light from the front, and we have the blue light from behind. It almost looks like she's at a bar or she's under moonlight. And so with this light combination, it's just totally different. It looks kind of fantasy. It doesn't look normal to our eyes, but I think that's why it's so interesting. So if you have the chance to really lower your exposure and shoot in a darker environment like this, don't be scared to blend in some of the natural light from outside and blend it in with some gelled light on your strobe. It can really create some interesting color combinations just like this. One bonus tip, in post-production, don't be scared to make some extreme white balance and tint adjustments. Sometimes the color combinations might actually surprise you. Okay, so now we've moved outside, and I want to show you a cool little trick that you can do with barn doors. For many years, I would only use barn doors in the studio because I thought, you know, this just kind of redirects the light on your background. But we found this really cool wall out here that's covered in these creeping figs, and it kind of looks like a movie premiere or like one of those backdrops you might see at a fancy event. And so I thought if we put this on our speed light, and then we have just a sliver of light cutting through our model, I think this would look really cool, and it's gonna make a huge difference in the photographs. Let me first show you what this looks like if we just shoot all natural light and just shoot in the shade. And as you can see with this picture, I mean, the light's nice and soft, but it's kind of boring. I feel like we can make this look a lot cooler. This just looks like a snapshot. So let me go ahead and turn on my strobe here. And because we're outside, I'm gonna set this to 7.5, which is gonna give me a good bit of light. We are in the shade here. And then I wanna position this up just above our model. And then I'm gonna make sure just the smallest little slit is coming through so that we can get that diagonal effect. And let me go ahead and take a shot here. So here with the shutter really fast, I can kill all of the ambient light and I can expose just with the strobe. Or if I slow my shutter down just a little bit, I can take another shot here. And I'm able to use both hard light from the strobe, but also bring in just a little bit of detail from the overcast light above. So there you go, barn doors outside. You can create some really nice confined hard light. Try it for yourself. So we've moved outside, we're downtown, so we got a lot of traffic and noise here. But we have this beautiful building facade. This is like an old post office, but everything's in shade. So my thought for this shot is if I just shoot all natural light, it's gonna be really overcast and everything's gonna be the same contrast. It's kind of dull and boring. So what I'm gonna use is hard light to try to make some brighter highlights, but then also create some shadows. What you can do with the A2 here is you can fit it inside this adapter ring. This is called the Clic OCF Adapter 2. The way this works is it has magnets in here, so you can just take your A2 and it just snaps right in there, and it's locked pretty securely. And then this side is the normal diameter of all of their other modifiers, so we can just snap that on just like that. What I have here is the OCF Magnum, and this is just going to funnel the light. It actually gives you an extra stop or two of power. And if I raise this up really high, I'm gonna go ahead and set this to about 8, just so that it's nice and bright. And then I'm going to move this really far away from our subject. And then Anna, Logan, if I can get you to go up to the steps there. The goal here is to shoot a harder light from further away so that we can light up the entire scene and also cast some hard light on her, which I think is gonna make her really pop against this background. Before I take this shot, let me show you what the natural light looks like. And this image looks great. I mean, the natural light here is awesome just because it's so soft. Everything is in the correct exposure. But if I turn on my flash, watch what this is gonna do. It's gonna allow it just to pop a little bit better. And I love the look of that. I feel like it just adds a little bit more contrast. It's definitely a trick that you're always gonna want in your back pocket. All right, so here we have a completely different light modifier. This is one of my favorite ones. This is a softbox. We're using the OCF 2x3. I really enjoy smaller softboxes because when you get them a little far away, they still have a punchiness, but they're not too hard to manage. But if you get them really close, they're still big enough to produce really soft light. We have a couple different options here using a softbox. This is probably my favorite light modifier just because it produces really natural looking light that you can blend in with your ambient light. And this is probably my go-to lighting setup that I use the most when I'm outside. Now, there's another shot down here I'm gonna do in a minute, but first there's this really wide shot here where I can use the hard light from the sun coming back behind. You can see it illuminating the flag, and it's adding all these really nice shadows. We have Anna Logan in the shades, so she's really not being affected that much, although if I move her around, I'm sure we could get some highlights on her shoulder and stuff. But what I like to do is just put this softbox, I don't know, like 4 to 8 feet away. And because it's big enough, this is a 2x3, you do have some range where you can pull it a little further away and still get a relatively soft look, unlike if we just had no modifier on it at all. So out here, we are gonna have to set our power a lot higher. So I have this at 7.1. My settings are 1/200th of a second, f2.8 and ISO 400. That's just going to allow me to blur the background, but then also kill as much ambient light so that we can see our strobe firing as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shoot some wide at 24 and 70 millimeters, but I'm also gonna shoot some at 70 or 200 millimeters. It allows me to step further away and kind of compress the scene and show more of this beautiful street. Now, before I turn this light on, let me just take a couple shots with no strobe at all, just to show you what the natural light looks like. And in some cases, natural light can look amazing, but in many cases like this, you can just see the background looks pretty good, but she's just way too dark. So this is a great example of where adding a little bit of flash can really even out that exposure and make it look a lot better. So let me go ahead and turn on our strobe. I'm at 7.1, and now if we take the same picture, look how much better that looks. Before I jump into the second shot that I see right over here, one last little tip is make sure that your softbox is lighting your subject pretty evenly, because if you just aim it at their face, sometimes their legs go really dark and it starts to look uneven. In many cases, I might even bring this a little further away just so that I can get an even lit exposure on the entire body. If I'm shooting full length, if you're zooming in, of course, you can bring the light a lot closer. So one thing that I like to do often is find these areas where we have some nice hard light coming from behind, and you can see all these nice shadows on the wall here. But if I take a test shot with no light whatsoever, go ahead and lean up against the wall there. If you look at this image, you can see the light on Anna Logan, there's no great light on her face, but we do have some really nice light hitting her shoulders and edging out the dress. And so if you can add a little bit of fill light from the front and make that soft light, it really looks natural because it almost looks like the sky from above is lighting her correctly for a right exposure, but you still register the sun being directly behind her. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna turn on our strobe, Because it is pretty bright out here, I'm gonna set this at 7.5. So this is about 2.5 stops lower than the maximum output. And now let me show you how big of a difference this single strobe makes. And now you can see the skin tones look great. Everything is filled in really nice and soft. It is flash photography, but it doesn't scream flash photography like some of the other images that we've created. And so I use this all the time. In fact, this is probably my go-to light modifier when I'm shooting out on the streets. If I'm doing weddings, senior portraits, headshots, this is my favorite one. All right, you feel like the shoot's been going pretty well?
It's been awesome.
Been awesome. Do you have any idea what this is?
It's a Snoot.
It's a Snoot. We have not used the Snoot yet. Now, this is typically a light modifier that I would use in the studio, maybe to put like a circle on a background. But we were out here walking around and we came across this really interesting circle, and David behind the camera actually gets credit for this one. He says, what if you put the Snoot on and shot with the circle and then projected a small little circle on her? Well, that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on our light modifier. The sun is setting, so it's actually pretty dark out here, which makes it really easy to do flash photography. I'm gonna basically set the camera so that everything is pretty dark, maybe bleed in just a little bit of ambient exposure so that we can see some of this marble stone. And then if I position this light just perfectly, I don't know if you'll be able to see this on video, but we're able to cast just a little bit of light just on her. But I think the contrast of the light on her face with the circle in the background is gonna look kind of interesting. Let me take one shot with just natural light. And so as you can see, this looks really cool. Everything's really flat and exposed properly, but it's not that exciting. Let me go ahead and turn on our strobe and show you what it's gonna look like if we change our settings and use the Snoot. This looks way more interesting. We're gonna shoot a bunch of these and come up with one final perfect image. All right, do the arms. All right, there you go. How was that?
It was so much fun.
So much fun. 5 different light modifiers. Do you have a favorite?
The Snoot.
The Snoot.
I loved it. I thought that was so unique and just a different concept.
And you know what? I rarely use a Snoot out on location, and that wound up being your favorite image.
Yeah,
maybe we gotta start using the Snoot more often. I think my favorite one, I really like the soft light with you in the wall.
Yeah.
But we have some cool images to go through, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want to check out any of the gear that I used in this video, go to the link in the description below. And if you want to check out any of our full length tutorials, head over to fstoppers.com/store, where you can check out a bunch of different genres from a bunch of different photographers. Sun is setting, I'm getting hungry, we gotta get out of here.
All right, bye guys.